History of ancient Lycia. Lycia was a geopolitical region in Anatolia in what are now the provinces of Antalya and Muğla on the southern coast of Turkey, bordering the Mediterranean Sea, and Burdura province inland. Known to history since the records of ancient Egypt and the Hittite Empire in the Late Bronze Age. It was populated by speakers of the Luwian language group. Written records began to be inscribed in stone in the Lycian language, a later form of Luwian, after Lycia's involuntary incorporation into the Achaemenid Empire, also called the First Persian Empire. In the Iron Age, the final epoch of the three-age division of the prehistory and proto-history of humanity. Lycia fought for the Persians in the Persian Wars, a conflict between the Achaemenid Empire and Greek city-states that started in 499 BC and lasted until 449 BC. But Achaemenid Empire by the Greeks. It became intermittently a free agent. After a brief membership in the Athenian Empire, it seceded and became independent. Its treaty with Athens had omitted the usual non-secession clause, was under the Persians again, revolted again, was conquered by Mausolus of Caria, a region of western Anatolia extending along the coast from Mid-Ionia, Mycale, south to Lycia and east to Phrygia. The Ionian and Dorian Greeks colonized the west of it and joined the Carian population in forming Greek-dominated states, and finally fell under Macedonian hegemony upon the defeat of the Persians by Alexander the Great. Due to the influx of Greek speakers and the sparsity of the remaining Lycian speakers, Lycia was rapidly Hellenized. Hellenized is the adoption of Greek culture, religion, language and identity by non-Greeks. In the ancient period, colonization often led to the Hellenization of indigenous peoples. In the Hellenistic period, many of the territories which were conquered by Alexander the Great were Hellenized. Under the Eastern Roman, Byzantine Empire, much of its territory was Hellenized, and in modern times, Greek culture has prevailed over minority cultures in modern Greece. After defeating Antiochus III the Great in 188 BC, the Roman Republic gave Lycia to Rhodes, the largest of the Dodecanese islands of Greece, and is also the island group's historical capital. For 20 years, taking it back in 168 BC. In these latter stages of the Roman Republic, Lycia came to enjoy freedom as a Roman protectorate. The Romans validated home rule officially under the Lycian League in 168 BC. The eponymous inhabitants of Lycia, the Lycians, spoke Lycian, a member of the Luwian branch of the Anatolian languages, an extinct branch of Indo-European languages that were spoken in Anatolia, part of present-day Turkey. The best-known Anatolian language is Hittite. About 535 BC, before the first appearance of attested Lycian, the Achaemenid Empire overran Lycia. Despite its resistance, because of which the population of Xanthos was destroyed, Lycia became part of the Persian Empire. The first coins with Lycian letters on them appeared not long before 500 BC. Lycia prospered under a monarchy set up by the Persians. Subsequently, the Lycians were verbose in stone, carving memorial, historical and governmental inscriptions. Lycia hosted a small enclave of Dorian Greeks for some centuries, and Rhodes was mainly inhabited by Dorians at the time. After the defeat of the Persians by the Greeks, Lycia became open to further Greek settlement. In 19th century, before the decipherment of Hittite and ancient Egyptian, and the discovery of government records pertaining to Lycia and the Lycians, the records for the most part do not offer positive reports of them. In reports of official transactions with Lycians in the Late Bronze Age, ancient Egyptian records describe the Lycians as allies of the Hittites. Lycia may have been a member state of the Aswa League of circa 1250 BC, appearing as Luka. Hittite language texts from the 2nd millennium BC, is a collective term for states formed by the Luka people in southwest Anatolia. After the collapse of the Hittite Empire, Lycia emerged as an independent Neo-Hittite kingdom. The latter term was assigned to remnant states that continued after the fall of the Hittite Empire. According to Herodotus, an ancient Greek writer, geographer, and historian born in the Greek city of Halicarnassus, part of the Persian Empire. The earliest known name for the area was Milyas, and its original inhabitants, who spoke the Mylyan language, were the Milya mountainous country in ancient southwest Anatolia. Lycian tombs are carved like the facade of timber Lycian houses with protruding beams, house-type tombs, usually with 1 or 2 stories, sometimes 3. The most elaborate rock-cut tombs are those carved in the form of Ionic temples, the largest and most famous at Tel Messos, Fetiye, the tomb of Amyntas. These rock-cut temple-type tombs. Rock-cut tombs often held more than one body. Many tombs have several stone couches inside upon which gifts were left and the dead were laid, often families. The entrance was sealed with a sliding stone door that ran sideways along a groove. At Pinara's southern necropolis, there is one tomb with a surviving fragment of a sliding door. It has a notch at the bottom to help crowbar the door into place. The tombs of wealthy Lycians were finely worked with elaborate relief carving. On some of the rock tombs the exterior is decorated with reliefs depicting the specific features of the deceased and the main events of the period. Symposium scenes relating to the funeral feast are frequently included in the reliefs. Other times, mythological scenes are depicted. These reliefs were once brightly painted. Myra's painted tomb still has some traces of paint on its life-sized figures. But the tombs of the poor and less wealthy were plain, without relief carving. A good example of these simple tombs can be seen at Pinara. They are also the oldest form of the rock-cut tombs, hundreds of roughly hewn pigeonhole caves honeycombing a cliff face. These tombs were usually bricked up to a small access hole, which was then locked with a stone plate. Tlos was described in the Hittite Chronicle as the most brilliant metropolis of the Lycian nation. Tlos was strategically placed on a hill commanding expansive views of Xanthos Valley to the west and protected by the Okdog Mountains to the east. Evidence suggests that Tlos was inhabited 4,000 years ago, but the site was not abandoned until the 19th century. When Rome got involved in the eastern Mediterranean, the Lycians allied with Rome. An inscription found in Tiberissos provides the first record of such an alliance treaty, Foedus. Dating precedes the Treaty of 46 BC. The context in which this treaty was made is unknown. It could have been concluded during the expansionist moves by Antiochus III the Great, the Seleucid king, in Anatolia prior to the Roman-Seleucid War, 192–188 BC, or during or after this war. Alternatively, it could have been concluded in the context of the Mithridatic Wars in Anatolia in the 1st century BC. An inscription found on a statue base found in Thespiae attests that in 46 BC Julius Caesar signed a treaty with the Lycian League. It had 9 articles. The first article stipulated friendship, alliance and peace both by land and sea in perpetuity. Let the Lycians observe the power and preeminence of the Romans as is proper in all circumstances. Lycia was incorporated into the Ottoman Empire and eventually became part of Turkey. After World War I, Lycia was assigned to the Kingdom of Italy according to the terms of the Treaty of Sèvres and occupied for a few years, but in 1923 was assigned to Turkey. During this period, Lycia hosted both Turkish and Greek communities. The substantial Christian community of Greeks lived in Lycia until the 1920s, when they were forced to migrate to Greece after the population exchange between Greece and Turkey following the Greco-Turkish War, 1919–1922, was fought between Greece and the Turkish national movement during the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire in the aftermath of World War I, between May 1919 and October 1922. The Greek campaign was launched primarily because the Western Allies, particularly British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, had promised Greece territorial gains at the expense of the Ottoman Empire, recently defeated in World War I, as Anatolia had been part of ancient Greece and the Byzantine Empire before the Ottomans captured the area. The abandoned Greek villages in the region are a striking reminder of this exodus. Abandoned Greek houses can still be seen in the region, and Kaya from Ancient Greek. The town name shifted to Koine Greek by the Roman period, evolved into Byzantine Greek in the Middle Ages, and finally became the modern Greek name still used by its townspeople before their final evacuation in 1923. The Lycian alphabet was used to write the Lycian language of the Asia Minor region of Lycia. It was an extension of the Greek alphabet, with half a dozen additional letters for sounds not found in Greek. It was largely similar to the Lydian and the Phrygian alphabets. It contains letters for 29 sounds. Some sounds are represented by more than one symbol, which is considered one letter. There are 6 vowel letters, one for each of the 4 oral vowels of Lycian, and separate letters for 2 of the 4 nasal vowels. 9 of the Lycian letters do not appear to derive from the Greek alphabet. In 1923, population exchange between Greece and Turkey stemmed from the convention concerning the exchange of Greek and Turkish populations signed at Lausanne, Switzerland, on January 30, 1923, by the governments of Greece and Turkey. It involved at least 1.6 million people, 1,221,489 Greek Orthodox from Asia Minor, Eastern Thrace, the Pontic Alps and the Caucasus, and 355,000 to 400,000 Muslims from Greece, most of whom were forcibly made refugees and de jure denaturalized from their homelands. This major compulsory population exchange, or agreed mutual expulsion, was based not on language or ethnicity, but upon religious identity, and involved nearly all the indigenous Orthodox Christian peoples of Turkey, the Rum Roman/Byzantine millet, including even Armenian and Turkish-speaking Orthodox groups, and on the other side most of the native Muslims of Greece, including even Greek-speaking Muslim citizens, such as Valahads and Cretan Turks. By the end of 1922, the vast majority of native Pontian Greeks had fled Turkey due to the genocide against them, 1914 to 1922, and the Ionian Greek Ottoman citizens had also fled due to the defeat of the Greek army in the later Greco-Turkish War, 1919 to 1922, which had led to reprisal killings. The estimate for the Greeks living within the present-day borders of Turkey in 1914 could be as high as 2.130 million, a figure higher than the 1.8 million Greeks in the Ottoman census of 1910, which included Western Thrace, Macedonia and Epirus, based on the number of Greeks who left for Greece just before World War